Positive vibes, making positivity and gratitude louder in a podcast world. I used to have a negative mindset and stayed stuck. I realized this and flipped the switch. With a positive mindset, life is phenomenal. Listen in as my guests and I bring fresh perspective and add positive vibes to the world every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific on VT Radio Universal. Positivity and gratitude louder in a podcast world.
VT Radio Universal.
And good morning and welcome to this week's episode of Positive Vibes, making positivity and gratitude louder in a podcast world. And this morning...
Hey there. I do apologize for my lighting. It could be a bit better, but this is what I got today. So, yes, I'm still in Portland. I'm doing good. I'm doing really good today. I am a hybrid of a lot of different areas. I was born in the Midwest. I was born in Missouri around the Boot Heel. Lived in Illinois for a little bit, Arlington Heights. Moved back to Missouri. Then the family moved to Connecticut, out in the East Coast. From there, I moved to Michigan. And from Michigan, I moved to Portland. Yeah, so kind of like, made my way here. So we're both for now, and based on my history, I can't stay in one place for eternity. So I don't plan, but this is where I drop anchor. I don't know that this is where I will drop anchor, but for right now, it's serving its purpose. I'm learning a lot. I've grown a lot. I've found my voice here in Portland. I mean, there are a lot of resources to do that here. Not that I didn't have one elsewhere, but I think I was really able to explore my creativity more so here. Just because there were a lot more resources here. Well, somewhat. I mean, not that the resources weren't available in Connecticut or in Detroit. You know what I mean? Because Connecticut, it's right next door. Like the whole East Coast might as well be New York City, even though it's not. But I think that in Michigan, they say, on every street corner there's a church or a liquor store. Like in Detroit, that's literally what they say. And here it's kind of like, on every street corner, there's kind of like some kind of created outlet and a naturopath. Then this is from somebody moving from Detroit, moving here. That's kind of the way I see it. So it's not like there were more resources here. I just think that they were more in your face here. Or at least a lot more in your face. Like you don't have to dig for them so much. You don't have to look for them. They're there if you want to see them. That's a big one. I was diagnosed. They say that a woman over 30 should never reveal her age, but I look fabulous for my age, so I don't care. I'm 53 now. And I was Thank you very much. But I'm 53 now, and I was diagnosed when I was 31. But prior to that, I had symptoms for 6 years. So you're saying, when did I present? I presented probably around the age of 25. I wasn't diagnosed until the age of 31, officially. And that was kind of, I really had to be assertive in the way that I was diagnosed, because I didn't know what it was. I knew that I had problems walking. I knew that I had problems with lethargy. I was very tired all of the time. There were a couple instances where I literally could not move anything from the waist down. I just those momentary paralysis and stuff. And so these are the things that I knew were happening. But to try to explain that to my PCP or anything like that, because they weren't specialists, they just weren't getting it. And there are other variables involved that I won't really go into right now. But it took me going to an osteo, a doctor that works with bones. I'm sorry, I'm having an MS moment. The name just sort of. Thank you very much. So I was living with my mother at the time, and she actually saw that I was having these problems walking. I was limping, like, and with MS, you're symptomatic for like maybe 20 minutes, and then you sit down, it's good, or that's kind of the way it worked with me. Like I was limping and stuff like that if I had been on my feet for too long, and then I would sit down for about 30 minutes, and then I would get a resurgence of energy. But my mother saw that and she got really concerned. We didn't know what it was. I didn't, she didn't. So she thought that maybe it was something in my bones. So she's like, I want you to go see this particular doctor over here. And she even paid because at the time I wasn't insured, she paid out of pocket for me to see this doctor. And I went, and he was like, okay, so take some glucosamine chondroitin and take this and that. And if your symptoms don't improve, come back in 6 weeks. So they didn't improve. So I went back in 6 weeks, and I said, look, the same thing is still happening. I took these medicines religiously, and they started laughing at me, kind of like, there's nothing we can do. And I knew that they were thinking that this was all in my head. And of course, being a somewhat intelligent, socially intelligent individual, while they were like out of the office, and stuff like that, and giggling as they passed the door, I pretty much had to think about how I was going to present this in a way to get what I needed. And the doctor came back in and said, there's really not much we can do outside of the glucosamine chondroitin. And I said, you know what, look, I said, you guys take an oath. Do thy patient no harm. This is the oath that you take. I said, and so if you have me walking out of here after telling you these symptoms are persisting, you're doing me harm. I said, so here's what I'm going to present to you. I said, you've got medical books back there. I'm telling you what my symptoms are. You can look up what my symptoms are, and you can take an educated guess as to what you think it might be. I said, but I'll tell you this right now. If I walk out of this office and 2 years from now, we actually find out what it is, you're not going to want to have that happen, nor will the board of directors of this hospital want that to happen. So I suggest you go back, figure it out, and give me someplace to go. Like, point me in the right direction. If you can't help me, point me to somebody who can. This is a hospital. There are doctors, plural, here. And so he left, and 20 minutes later he said, there's a neurologist on the 8th floor. She's waiting for you. And so I went to that neurologist, Valerie Curtis was her name, and she basically said, if these symptoms get any worse in the next month, I want you to go straight to the ER in this hospital, tell them I'm your neurologist, and we'll look at getting you diagnosed. And of course, I didn't take advantage of the situation. I waited for a while, and nothing was getting better. And I went to the ER that within like maybe 3 weeks or so. And that's where they pulled out like vials of like a pint of blood, a vial at a time. I had the EEGs, and I had my MRIs, and that's when I was officially diagnosed at the age of 31. I had to subtly threaten them though, for that to happen. Like, you don't want me to come back here and find out. Like, you do not want that. You don't want that. Because, it's kind of like walk softly and carry a big stick. That's kind of how I roll. I mostly write poems. I kind of write from the heart. It's therapeutic in a way, but at the same time, I'm sure it's relatable, for people. Because, if it's my experience, chances are it's somebody else's experience too. So that's kind of my wheelhouse is poetry, but I've ventured off into writing prose a little bit, but I can never finish a prose. Like, I get the idea, and of course I've got like 2 books that are kind of swimming around in my brain right now, 2 different ones. But writing prose is a lot different than writing poems, whereas poems, it's kind of like it's kind of like an injection, like a reverse injection. It's quick, It's powerful with a plunge. You get those words out, and it's kind of like whatever you were feeling or whatever your heart wanted to say, it's there, and it's there in a matter of minutes or seconds or what have you. With prose, it's a little bit different, because with prose, you need a paintbrush. With prose, there's a lot of description that's involved. It's kind of like, tell them what you told them, tell them, and then tell them what you told them, but you can't really tell them. You have to tell them in a way that keeps them, involved and keeps them wanting to read more. And, how you describe something. You don't want to just say, that blue dress. You want to use words like azul, and you want to compare it. You want to compare the blue to something, to give an idea of the specific hue, the specific color, the density of how deep it is. You don't want to just tell them. You want to paint the picture. And although I enjoy doing that, there's something about writing a poem where you can say that in a couple lines. You can do that in a couple lines, whereas with prose, you have to do that in a few sentences, sometimes a paragraph or two if you really want to get that deep. So not that I have problems writing it, it's just a little bit more difficult for me to focus more on writing prose than poetry. Yeah, they're there. It's kind of like you're in that zone and they're there, and some of my poems rhyme and some of them don't. It's all in, for me, it's all in where I am at when I'm writing. Where I am, what I want to convey. If the rhyme is there, the rhyme is there, but I don't think of it. You know what I mean? It just is. If the poem is going to be a rhyming poem, it is, and if it's not, it's not. And generally, I don't know what the poem's going to be until it's finished. Yeah, well, and it's I think as a writer, I think we understand what it truly means to be present, because in that moment when we're writing poems, we are fully present. It is us, the pen, the page, and that's it. That's it, and that's all you need in that moment. That is your bread of life right there. In that moment, it's you, the pen, the page. And for me, it's an experience that I kind of cherish, because that's when I'm truly within myself and I'm truly present and I'm truly acknowledging everything that I am and every place that I've been and every feeling that I've ever had. Everything just kind of comes together. Yeah. And you don't need explanation there. You're not doing it to please other people. It is what it is. And that's, I think, when you're truly who you are, because you're not doing it to please anybody else. This is your story, like it or whoever likes it, whoever doesn't, but it's unapologetically you, and I think that's why I embrace writing so much for me, because I don't write anything that I don't know. And it's not to please anybody else, I seldom share what I write, even though sometimes I'll finish writing